Coast National Park Authority. Once again, this is a virtual meeting with all participants joining remotely whilst work on our meeting room at Lanyon is still underway. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all members and officers and any members of the public and press who may be observing. I am not going to steal the chair's thunder, who will be extending an official welcome at the NPA next week, but I will note that Mr. John Hogg, a newly appointed member, is observing, and you're most welcome. I'm Simon Hancock, and I'm the chair of the Development Management Committee. All 18 members of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority are members of this committee, reflecting the importance of it in making decisions for the people and the special qualities of the national park. 12 members are appointed by Pembrokeshire County Council, but are not representing their wards, and 6 are appointed by Welsh Government ministers. I'm not going to ask people to introduce themselves because everyone should be identified on the screen, and I shall, of course, invite you to speak by name in the order in which you appear on my screen. As usual, we're joined today by a number of officers and advisors. We also have 2 public speakers registered to speak, and I'll introduce them at the appropriate time. I'm delighted to say that today we have translation facilities, so speak in English or Welsh, we've got the translation facilities, which is great. I must remind you all that the meeting is being live streamed, and I would ask everybody to speak clearly and follow the usual meeting etiquette. Please turn off your microphone when not speaking and use the hand raise facility if you wish to speak. And of course, use the hand facility when it's time to vote. We have 3 applications on the agenda for decision today, and following our deliberations, there will be an update on appeals. As always, I encourage members to take part in our discussions, but I will ask you to be focused and succinct in your comments to enable us to complete our business efficiently and effectively. We will have a break if appropriate, and I hope to be finished by lunchtime, given the short nature of the agenda. So we'll move on to that agenda without further delay. Bant ni. So the first item on today's agenda is to receive apologies for absence. I've been advised of the apologies tendered by Councillor Tim Evans. Caroline, are there any others?
I've not received any others, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on then to item 2, to receive disclosures, declarations of interest by members or officers in respect of any item of today's business. Please indicate. Councillor Steve Alderman.
I would like to say that I'm prejudicial and personal and prejudicial issues with both 5B and 5C. I've been neighbours with the applicants for Longhouse Trevine for the best part of 35 years, and I've obviously, from a previous applications by Trewern, Valindra Varcog, I've declared a personal and prejudicial issue there in the last few applications that they've made. So I'd like to present that to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Alderman. Councillor Di Clements.
Diolch, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest on NP 5B NP 240521 full, as the applicant is known to me as in dairy farming circles, but fairly loosely. So there we are. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? It appears not, so we'll move on. Members, can I draw your attention to item 3, which you can confirm as a true and accurate record the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of July 2025. First of all, are there any amendments, or are you happy with their accuracy? No amendments or changes required? Okay, well, in that case, I'll move their accuracy from the chair. Can I have a seconder? Dr. Madeline Harvard, please.
Happy to second, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you very much indeed, Madeline. Okay, with that, can I please ask for a show of hands the accuracy of the minutes? If you raise your hand, we'd be most grateful. Okay, I think that's a very clear majority, is it not? Thank you very much, members. If you would lower your hands. So we're moving on to agenda item 4, to consider a standing item, given the importance of this committee, to consider the solicitor's report concerning members' duties in determining applications. I'd like to welcome Thomas Phillips, solicitor. Thomas, I think you're
Morning all. I think
Good
you're probably
morning.
more familiar with my colleague Charles, who regularly attends this meeting. He's currently away visiting family in New Zealand, so I've
Indeed.
been asked to step in. So moving on to the sort of standard report. This will briefly summarise the role of you as a committee within the planning system. The purposes of the national parks, such as yourselves, are set out in section 5.1 of the 1949 Act. They are twofold. Firstly, to conserve and enhance the natural beauty, wildlife and cultural heritage of the area. And secondly, to promote opportunities for the understanding and enjoyment of the special qualities of the area by the public. And in fulfilling these functions, you as an authority are under a duty to foster the social well-being of communities within your area. One of the key fundamental principles of your decision-making is, of course, the Sandford Principle. And this was originally expressed as the idea that where there are irreconcilable conflicts between conservation and public enjoyment, then conservation interest should take priority. And that was then embedded into law through section 11A2 in the 1949 Act. And most recently, it's sort of been, or over time, it's come to be interpreted as essentially giving primacy of the first purpose, conservation purposes, over the second, that is the public enjoyment and recreation, in cases of irreconcilable conflict. And as usual, officers will advise in their reports if they are of the view that any development proposal does not accord with that principle. In terms of the planning system and the way the decisions should be taken, the planning system is a statutory code which regulates the rights of landowners and other interested parties in order to ensure that development and use of land reflects and is in the interests of the public. Planning decisions must be made in accordance with that statutory code. And the public interest in decision making is primarily expressed through the development plan, and that consists, for your purposes, of the National Development Framework, Future Wales, and secondly, the National Authority, Pamshire Coast National Park Local Development Plan 2, which was adopted in September 2020. And the law requires that planning decisions are taken in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. And there's significant case law on what can be considered to be relevant or material considerations, and which considerations are not relevant and need to be disregarded. And if you do have any doubts or concerns about that, then that's something that I'd be happy to advise on as we work through the meeting. In addition to the development plan, all public bodies have a statutory duty to carry out sustainable development under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015. And that act defines sustainable development as the process of improving the economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being of Wales by taking action in accordance with the sustainable development principle. And there are a series of well-being goals which decisions and actions are required to be aimed at achieving. I won't go through those there, but they're set out in the report. And essentially, it's delivering a prosperous, resilient, healthier Wales, etc. In addition to that, there are ecological considerations which all decisions taken need to be to have regard to under the Environment Wales Act 2016. The authority must seek to maintain and enhance biodiversity in the exercise of its planning functions. The authority is also subject to a variety of duties in respect of national and internationally important sites and protected species. And again, these will be advised upon and referred to on a case-by-case basis. The Human Rights Act 1998 incorporated into domestic law the rights set out in the European Convention of Human Rights, but it's been, and there are key human rights which are relevant to your decision making. However, provided that members apply the planning acts and their duty to determine in accordance with the development plan lawfully and in a fair and impartial manner, they will have also acted in accordance with the Human Rights Act and complied with their duties in that regard. Hopefully you're all familiar with the, in addition to the general members code of conduct, the specific members planning code of good practice, which is relevant to decision making in the planning system. Paragraph 11 of the code is especially relevant to decision making at committee, and set out a series of example of conduct which is good conduct in that regard, and conduct which should be avoided, and clearly declaring conflicts and things are part of that process. Finally, I'll just touch upon costs and situations where cost award may be made against the authority, where a decision of the authority is the subject of appeal to the Welsh ministers. Either the ministers or the relevant planning inspector acting on their behalf has the power to make either a partial or full award of costs against the authority where the authority is held to have acted unreasonably, and that unreasonable behaviour has directly caused another party to incur unnecessary or wasted costs. And there is Welsh Government guidance on the award of costs in the Development Management Manual, section 12, which gives examples of the types of unreasonable behaviour which may lead to cost awards. And clearly that's something that ought to be avoided at all costs. Failing to provide reasons for decisions, failing to provide evidence to substantiate decisions, and take into account immaterial and irrelevant considerations are all the types of things that can lead to cost awards. So yeah, that concludes the solicitor's report.
Thank you very much indeed, Thomas. We're most grateful for you reminding us of our duties and the framework within which we operate as a DM committee. So thank you so much for that. So members, that brings us on to the section of the agenda in which we have the planning applications to determine today. As I said, we have 3 applications. The first one is 5A, NP 230492. It's a modification of planning obligation to provide affordable housing as part of NP 10511, Blockett Farm, Littlehaven, Haverfordwest, Pembrokeshire, CR Alpha 63 and the 3UH. I believe Kate Attrell. Kate, you're going to be the presenting officer in this application.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just check that members can see the screen?
Yes, indeed.
Thanks. Right, so to kick off, I have to start by apologising. Members, I am sorry, the redlined plan that is in your agenda documents was an incorrect plan that had been submitted for the first planning application in 2010 and was remaining on our database. So when our plans are pulled through for these agendas, they come through automatically from the database. So it wasn't until much later after the committee report was produced that we realised the red line was incorrect. So I'm displaying the correct red line, which was amended during the course of the planning application. I'm showing you a copy of the actual approved plan for the site so that you're clear where the site is. The plan on your agenda shows other land which is not in the ownership of the applicant, so I need to ensure that that's corrected. The second thing to correct is that on the basis of legal advice, we've requested to change the description of the development as well. So with this site, there are 3 relevant planning applications that are listed in the report. There are 2 Section 106s that apply to this site, and normally when we apply Section 106 now, there's a clause in it that says any subsequent applications will also be covered by this legal agreement. But the 2014 legal agreement wasn't amended by this one. There was a new legal agreement for the 24 applications. So the Section 106s are identical, but we need to amend both in order that the applicants can don't have to basically come back and apply to amend the other one at a later date. The clauses are all identical in terms of it, so it would just be a description change that I've displayed on the screen before you. It's quite an interesting site. It goes back a long way. If I take you back to the aerial photograph, this is the turkey farm that used to exist on this site before the 2010 planning application, which was in part to tidy up the landscape of the national park. So if I flick back forward, you can see that it's quite vast. That's the site as it appears today. So the farm has almost entirely been removed, but for one shed, which remains in the applicant's ownership. And the development site is on this piece of land just here where my cursor is showing. So if I move on to the actual the description, the application proposes the modification of 2 Section 106 legal agreements relating to this housing site at Blockett Lane, which was for 6 dwellings. When the application was originally approved in 2010, the LDP requirement was for 50% affordable housing. But in 2020, the LDP 2 required this only to be for 20% of new dwellings. So since that date, the applicants and the local authority have had the viability of the scheme assessed twice. So first it was done by the district valuer in 2019, prior to a formal application being submitted. That application came in 2023 to vary the Section 106 agreement. And at that stage, the district valuer's assessment was out of date because they're only valid for 3 months from the date when the viability is assessed because of changing market conditions. So since then, we have very recently had the viability reassessed by an independent viability expert to consider those matters. And his assessment was that there is viability for the provision of 1 affordable housing unit on this site, which can be supported by the scheme. So the report before you today is proposing a modification to the Section 106 agreements to reduce the affordable housing contribution from 3 to 1. But we do also want to request that as part of that delegation, it includes provision for either an off-site contribution or an on-site provision. The evidence to demonstrate that the site wouldn't be suitable for affordable housing hasn't been provided as part of this application. So if all of the affordable housing providers come back and say that they are not interested in having one house on a site far removed from any of their other sites, we would then have the ability to allow for an off-site contribution which can be fed into another housing scheme being developed. So the other clause that we didn't include in the reference on the planning report before you is that if this isn't agreed within 3 months, we would ask for delegation to be able to refuse the application, which is a standard that we put on most applications for legal agreements. So just to take you through very quickly, we're not considering the design or the principles. It is only the legal agreement, but just this is so you can just see what the houses will look like. So the terrace of 3 you can see in the middle of the screen, that was originally intended to be all affordable. And under this modification, it would see only one of those being affordable. This is a block plan. It's not very clear, I'm afraid. It hasn't scanned brilliantly. So north is to the left. And you can see how the plots stretch between 2 existing houses at the northern end of the plot and then further down with the access coming off Blockett Lane. So to conclude, members, our request today is that you grant us delegation to be able to modify the legal agreements in accordance with the revised red line before you and the revised description. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kate. Members, are there any questions for the presenting officer in respect of her presentation. Now, bringing first of all is Dr. Rosie Plummer.
Thanks, Kate, as ever. An interesting site. I'm just not quite clear from, I think, paragraphs 6 and 11 of the report, whether the recommendation in principle will be for one affordable unit also with a commuted sum, or whether those are kind of equal. Sorry, I couldn't get my head around that.
No, apologies, that's my fault. This site is more complicated by the fact that it actually has two Section 106s attached to it. So there is a separate Section 106 which is not being amended, which was to cover transportation improvement works, a community contribution, a waste management contribution and an open space contribution. And the total value of that commuted sum is £19,853.36. So that still stands and that's not being amended through this application. Right. It's only the provision for an affordable dwelling, but that might result in a second commuted sum for off-site affordable housing provision or an on-site. So it is slightly complex. So apologies, that I should have made that clearer in the report.
Thanks, that's fine. I get that now. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Alderman.
Who makes the decision of which of those three houses is the affordable house? Is that left to the applicant, or are we as a committee in a position to dictate, or just as a matter of clarity?
It's a very good question. It may be covered in the original. Well, the original would have seen all three being affordable. So if all three have identical footprints, it wouldn't matter. It would be at the point where an affordable housing provider agreed to take one on. So it could be any of the three, but we haven't got that detail before us today, I'm afraid.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Dave Clement. Oh, sorry. Did you want to come back, Steve?
I'm just saying thank you, Kate, for that clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Clements.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just noting that the Community Council hadn't responded. Obviously, August and summer are quite not many community councils meet then in the summer. So I just wondered if we'd had any correspondence from them subsequently. Thank you.
We haven't had anything further, but we did originally consult them in 2023, so it was quite some time ago.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Dr. Madeline Harwood.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Kate, can I just confirm about the affordable housing allocation? Obviously, losing affordable housing off-site is not something that the committee would want to see, but it is all down to a process of assessing viability and so on, and that's what's brought it down to the one. But are we still saying that there's some disagreement between valuers, or our independent valuer has said that they feel that there should be one affordable housing that would still make the development viable? Is that the case?
I have an answer, but the original application was to remove all of the affordable housing from the site. So our independent viability assessor has said that there is viability for one, but I'll let Sarah come in.
Yeah, just to add that we shared the independent appraisal with the applicant and their agent, and said that on that basis officers could support a variation to one but wouldn't be able to support a variation to nothing, and asked if they would like us to proceed on that basis, and they have agreed on that basis that yes, we should proceed. So whilst their original desire was to remove all affordable housing, they understand the process and are supportive of this current recommendation.
Thank you for that. And just remind me, if you would, it's then up to the developer to go to the affordable housing providers to see if they'd be prepared to take this on. And then we're saying that if that comes back with no providers are prepared to take it on, then indeed we'll look for a commuted sum. Is that the case?
That's correct. If this application was to come in now with only one unit, we as a local authority would go and make those inquiries. But so that process has changed slightly since this application originally came in. But it would be for the applicant to demonstrate that there was no need through contacting the affordable housing providers. But we would expect written confirmation from all of the affordable housing providers before we were in agreement with a commuted sum.
Good. So you'd see all of that evidence presented to you.
We would, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Sarah, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to add that what we're seeking is a modification to the Section 106 to allow for either one affordable housing unit on site or an equivalent financial sum, and we would use the same approach that we took to a situation that was up in St David's, where we had evidence that there wasn't a demand from social housing providers for an on-site provision, where the commuted sum payment that was calculated was to include the value of the land as well. So we would continue with that approach. Sometimes RSLs are reluctant to take individual properties purely because of some of the maintenance burden. So if you think about sending maintenance vans out to assist with anything that needs fixing, obviously that's more onerous if they're very dispersed. But that's why we would like to have the flexibility in the Section 106 that allows us to look at both circumstances depending on the evidence put forward.
Indeed, thank you very much. Are there any further questions for the officer in respect of the presentation? Oh, well, we don't have any public speakers for this application, so we'll seamlessly move into the discussion and the debate part of the agenda item. And the first speaker is the Chair of the Authority, Dr. Harvard. Madeline.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm obviously disappointed at the loss of affordable housing here, but I've taken on board both the comments from both of our officers. I think this is probably a very sensible way to progress on this site, and I'd be happy to propose that we approve, that we delegate for 2 officers as requested, and that's with the amendments that Kate has already highlighted, that we're looking at both Section 106s.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, it's the recommendation which appears on page 32 of your agenda packs, delegated approval to officers, along with the amendments, the changes that Kate mentioned. Right, there's a lot of speakers want to have indicated. So first of all, can I just please have a seconder? It's been moved. Can I just have a seconder? Councillor Clements. You're next anyway. Di?
I was only going to second it or propose it, but Madeline's beat me to it. So
okay, so
thank you.
It's been moved and seconded, so we'll just park that for a moment if there's any further comments or questions. Okay, Councillor Mike James.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Ddiolchgar iawn i y swyddogion am y gwaith bore yma. Mae y cwestiynau a'r atebion wedi bod yn ardderchog. Mae rhaid fi weid, a mae wedi helpu fi i ddod i'r canlyniadau ddwy yn hapus dage, ond hoffen ni jyst i weid na, i bod ddiolchgar iawn i Kate, Sarah a'r tîm i gyd am y gwaith bendigedig. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much indeed, and so say all of us. Councillor Maureen Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, affordable housing providers, do we have the inclination or the wish and the ability to challenge affordable housing providers if they turn down taking on a property in the area?
I think we've covered that,
Very-
have we not? But sorry,
It's a good
Sarah.
question.
Oh, Kate, sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
no, I
Please,
knew
Kate.
Sarah was going to put her hand up.
You both
Sarah
went at the same time. Thank you for the
Sorry.
question, Maureen. Kate, do you want to come in?
I don't think we do, Councillor Bowen. I don't think we can, because we're not the housing, we don't have the housing expertise in-house. So I think, given that there are 4 housing providers, one of whom is Pembrokeshire County Council, I think we would take their advice that if they declined it, we would accept that without challenge. But Sarah may have a different answer, so I'll defer to Sarah.
Oh, okay. Sarah?
No, I agree with Kate's comments. We wouldn't question their judgment. They have a particular job to do, and we recognise their expertise in it. But what I would say, just to reassure councillors, is that we do have regular liaison meetings with key RSLs and with Pembrokeshire County Council as the housing authority to look at how we plan for affordable housing across the national park. And we also have an approach set out in our supplementary planning guidance, which means that if we can't have something on site, we've prioritised spending that money in that community still for the first 3 years. So we try to make sure that affordable housing money, in this case, we would be looking at the Havens community area and trying to prioritise getting it spent there if it wasn't delivered on site. And it's only after 3 years that we broaden out the search then to make sure that the money is spent and look slightly more widely for the next 2 years. So just in terms of that process.
Thank you for the reply, and thank you for your question, Maureen. Are there any further questions or comments? Don't think there are. So in that case, I'm going to move to a vote. The recommendations appear on page 32, as I said before, delegated approval to officers. So if you're in favour of the recommendation, will you please raise your hand in the time-honoured way? Thank you. Is that 11 in favour? I'm not sure the officers are. I'm sure the officers are taking a tally on the votes. Any against? Any abstentions? So that is carried. Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on then to the second application that we have to determine, and that is application reference number. Oh, Councillor Alderman, you're leaving us.
I just thought I'd intervene and just say that I shall leave you, and I look forward to a message from Caroline later for the
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'll have a pause after the next 2 items, and then obviously we'll bring you back in for the update on appeals. Thank you, Councillor Alderman, who's declared a personal and prejudicial interest in the next 2 items. So this application, NP 240521, erection of agricultural building for milking parlour and the construction of collecting yard, feed pad, silage clamp, dirty water lagoon and associated works, Longhouse, Trevin, Haverfordwest, SA62 5AR. And I believe that the presenting officer for this is Jack Hauser. Jack?
Borodor, thank you, Chair.
Borodor, thank you.
So this application is being presented today to Development Management Committee in accordance with the scheme of delegation, as the director with responsibility for planning considers that it raises matters of public and or member interest. The application site forms part of Longhouse Farm, located just under half a kilometre northeast of Trevin, within the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. The farm sits within a rural landscape of improved pasture enclosed by traditional hedge banks with gentle undulating topography and wide coastal views. The area is sparsely settled with only a scattering of dwellings nearby. The site lies within the Trevin landscape character area, characterised by open pastoral land and medieval strips. The scheduled Neolithic chambered tomb of Carrig Sampson is approximately 280 metres to the east, though is visibly though it is visibly and physically separated from the proposed development by intervening landform and buildings. The farmhouse is surrounded by stone barns, a Dutch barn, and modern framed steel frame sheds, forming a mixed historic and functional farm. And this current application proposes the erection of an agricultural building for a milking parlour and construction of collecting yard, feed pad, silage clamp, dirty water lagoon, and associated works. Longhouse extends approximately 154 hectares with an additional 36 hectares rented from the business from the National Trust on a land adjacent to the coast. The reason for this is the holding has recently transitioned into a modern is in the process of transitioning into a modern spring carving dairy enterprise with around 450 cattle, managed on a low intensity grazing system with animals largely kept outdoors. The proposed development is required to support efficient milking and compliant waste management. Recent planning history includes approval for a storage shed and pending application for a cattle underpass and new farm track to an existing farm complex. Concerns have been raised that the proposal represents a significant intensification of activity, changing the farm from sheep and arable production to dairy, and the potential future herd expansion could be considered. However, under the Section 55 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, the change of use of land or buildings for agriculture does not constitute development, and therefore planning permission is not required to move from beef, sheep, or arable production to dairy. The application relates solely to the operational development, the milking parlour, slurry lagoon, feed pad, collecting yard, and silage clamp. Cattle are already present, and the herd will be grazed outdoors all year round. In the spring, summer, and autumn on grass, and in the winter on forage crops. The low input, low output system designed to make the best use of the land and produce quality milk, reducing reliance on intensive indoor housing, with the proposed infrastructure being required for efficient and environmentally compliant management. The principle of the agricultural building is well established in the planning policy where it's reasonably necessary, and any further expansion would be assessed under separate applications. So it's just this is the application site in front of you. We've just highlighted it in red, and then you can see we've coloured dots there just from where the photos have been taken, looking out onto the section where the application will be. The development site is sited immediately adjacent to the existing farm complex, consolidating the built form and avoiding encroachment into open fields. The milking parlour measures 32 by 16.8 metres with a 6.3 metre ridge height, accommodating the parlour and relevant ancillary facilities. Construction is steel portal frame with profile cladding in muted colours and concrete lower panels. Associated infrastructure including collecting yard, feed pad, and the silage clamp with effluent drainage, and the slurry lagoon will be lined, separating clean and contaminated water. NRW have no objection welcoming the clarified draining arrangements, which the consultation we received back in the 30th of May. Ammonia emissions, nitrate pollution, and slurry management were raised as concerns. A scale ammonia assessment predicted levels well below the critical thresholds for designated sites, with NRW raising no objection. The lagoon design meets COARP standards, and compliance with spreading restrictions and operational controls will be enforced separately by NRW. Biodiversity concerns include the absence of protected species surveys and limited habitat enhancement. NRW and the authorities ecologists confirmed no further surveys were necessary. Proposed hedgebank planting and wildflower margin are modest but positive contributions, and the wide landscape management is outside of the planning control for this application. An archaeological evaluation of 6 trial trenches confirmed no significant remains, with CADU raising no objections regarding Craig Sampson. The development, the proposed development represents appropriate and proportionate expansion of the existing dairy enterprise at Longhouse Farm. The site forms part of a traditional yet evolving farmstead with historic and modern buildings coexisting. The development is designed to improve animal welfare, ensuring compliance with environmental standards. The herd will be managed, as we said, as a low-intensity grazing system, and they will be kept outside the majority of the year, reducing pressure on buildings and limited environmental effects. The sitting of the new facilities alongside the existing farm structures further minimise landscape and visual impact within the national park. Overall, the proposal is well sited, sensibly designed and compliant with both local and national planning policies. As such, the report before members contains the relevant information in order to determine the application. Therefore, the recommendation to members is on page 6, is for an approval based on the associated planning conditions set out over pages 6 to 20. So I'm happy to take members through any pages or slides if slideshow if required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jack, for your presentation, which is quite substantial. Members, are there any questions to the officer? We do have 2 public speakers. Can I just check with Caroline? Caroline, I've got the list. We have 2 objector and applicant. Do they go in that order? Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Much obliged. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, first speaker is Councillor Mike James. This is questions to the officer. Of course, we're not in the debate section yet. Councillor James.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Cwestiwn sydd gyda fi yw a bwydy'r SUDS. Just i gael rhyw sort of clarification o le mae cyngor sir a'r parc genedlaethol gyda SUDS, os byddwch chi mor garedig. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Jack?
Sorry. So regarding the surface water drainage and SUDS, because of the scale of development, SAB approval will be required, which they will have to make a separate application. And also we have added a condition just to clarify that these arrangements be made before further development. Is that clear? Sorry, Councillor James.
Odi, a hwnna'n iawn. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi.
Diolch.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dr. Rosie Plummer. Questions.
Thank you. Just a question. It might be a question really for Kate and Sarah, perhaps. Yeah, they know me so well when it comes to lighting conditions. On that condition, I just wonder if one can either word it to add the external lighting should be agreed through the written submission, but will not then be added to. I understand you can't say in perpetuity because you might want to reduce the lighting, or we always hope they might. So that's a specific question. And other than that, I know that I'm disappointed we haven't yet adopted the dark skies as SPG, but that is in process. I wonder if it can at least be added to the informatives. So I don't know quite who wants to pick up those. Thanks, Jack, and thanks for having a big cursor. Lovely.
No problem at all.
Who'd like to respond? Kate, do you want to respond to the question from Rosie?
Can I come in? Thank you. Yeah. Could we amend the wording of the condition to say any additional lighting thereafter. Would that work for Rosie? I think that would be the simplest way of amending it to
thumbs
make,
up, thumbs up. So
that's great. I just want to keep on capturing that, so it doesn't sort of subtly just.
We do try and include that intention. It doesn't always come across in the conditions, I think, and we do need to settle on the perfect condition. We just haven't found it quite yet. But maybe we've got it now. Thank you.
Thank you. So that amendment to the condition has been made.
And can we add dark skies at least to the informatives?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
They agree. Good. Any further questions to the presenting officer before we come to the public speakers? No, it appears not. Okay. Well, we have two speakers in respect to this application. The first is the objector, and I do apologise if I am making a good attempt to pronounce your name correctly. Is it Paul Niewicki? Is the objector present?
I don't believe he's on the call, Chair. If you can give us a moment, we will just ask our planning admin leader to try and phone him.
Yeah, this was confirmed as of yesterday, so we were expecting him, but obviously
yes,
we'll wait until you can ascertain whether he's going to join us or not.
Yes, Jay, he did attend the trial, the test, the speaker's test that I held yesterday afternoon. He was attending that, so.
Caroline, do you have his contact details in order that I could go and call him? No, okay.
It's either Sharon or Sue or Paula.
Right, I'll leave the meeting briefly and just go and see if I can get that arranged. We might have to do the discussion in the alternative format otherwise, but I'll be right back.
Okay. In the absence of the objector, could we have the applicant first and then the objector, or is it better just to pause?
I think we're better to wait and see if the objector can be contacted.
Okay.
I would agree with that. The usual approach would be that the applicant has the final say.
Well, should we pause the meeting for a few minutes until we ascertain the whereabouts of the objector? So let's have a 2 or 3 minute break, and then we'll come back. Okay, so if you want to stop the live streaming, I tell you what, it's 10 to, we'll come back at 5 to. Thank you.
Caroline, we have admin trying to contact him, but it looks like we only have an email address for him and not a telephone number. So we may not be able to get him very quickly, depending on whether he's checking his emails regularly or not.
Did you catch that we're having a 5 minute break while in the interim?
I did not catch. Thank you, Caroline.
Caroline, are you there?
Yes, Andrew, we are still streaming. Okay.
The speaker is trying to get in, but he needs to be let into the meeting. Can you see any application to come into the meeting from anyone?
No.
No.
I've got nobody in my waiting room. I've only Councillor Tinley.
If we send you an email address, can you invite?
Yes.
We'll get you an email address on Teams now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get Sharon to send it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're just waiting to see if we can get the objector into the meeting. Hence the slight delay.
Yeah, Chair, just to confirm, the email address is being sent to Caroline now on Teams, and then she can invite in. Okay, thank you.
Splendid, thank you. So we have got a pause. We are still being live streamed, I believe.
We are still live streaming, yes. Chair, could I also mention while we were waiting, I noted that at the beginning of this item, Councillor Clements did put her hand up, and I'm guessing that's to just to remind us that she had an interest. I know she did put it up before, and then the officer made the presentation. So
yeah, I'm assuming that was the case, Di.
It was, and I've already sent Caroline my declaration of interest back while we've been waiting.
Splendid.
Thank you.
And that's right, in line with guidance, we make the declaration at the commencement of the meeting and also at the commencement of that agenda item itself.
There
we
it
need
is.
we need to repeat it.
Chair, I have just let in the objector.
Ah, yes, I see him. Is everybody back in the meeting in terms of members? Members of the DM committee? We all here? Excellent. Mr. Niedwidzki, I hope that's a decent attempt at pronouncing your name. Apologies if it's not accurate, but yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So welcome to the DM committee. You're most welcome in respect of the application 240521, the associated works at Longhouse, Trevine. So you have, as the objector, you have 5 minutes to address the DM committee, after which I can ask members of the committee if they have any questions for you. So
Right.
if that's okay, you have 5 minutes.
Firstly, apologies for the delay. The technology worked fine yesterday, but for some reason it didn't work today. But anyway, we are back on track. Before I begin, can I just ask one question? And that is, who has authorised the building to commence? Because it's already half built.
I think one of the officers can possibly.
I can jump in.
Yeah, Kate.
Councillor Hancock.
Yes, please.
There's no matter of authorising buildings to be built. If a building is built and applied for partly retrospectively, we are obliged to treat it exactly the same as a proposal for a non-built building. It's not an offence in planning to commence unless it's a listed building. So we have to treat this application the same as any other application for a proposed development.
Okay. Okay. Can I ask which officer is timekeeping? Because obviously we have to make sure everybody has the same, the objector and the applicant have the same time. So I assume, Caroline, you're our esteemed timekeeper?
I am, Chair. That's
Thank you.
correct.
So, Mr. Niedwidzki, if you'd like to start now, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a very significant application. It represents a major change of use from previous arable and sheep farming to intensive dairy farming. It creates a dairy farm of twice the average size, making it probably the biggest dairy farm on coastal land in the north of the county. It will therefore have a very significant effect on the landscape, not only in terms of the visual impact of hundreds of cows in fields that previously had modest numbers of sheep or crops, but also the ecological impact of hugely increased levels of nitrates and ammonia. Turning to the detail, I have concerns in 3 areas. They are the size of the herd, secondly, the management of the slurry lagoon, and thirdly, the visual impact of the proposed building. As to the herd, the proposal is for 360 cows plus 90 followers after calving. And because the farm is surrounded by many ammonia-sensitive sites, a scale ammonia assessment has been conducted. And quoting from its summary, it says the changes in practice at Longhouse Farm will increase the process contributions for ammonia upon the ammonia-sensitive sites. Now, I'm no expert in scale assessments, but I've looked at the different site assessments, and I see that a number of them include what appear to be exceedance figures. The summary says the most significant impact of ammonia is upon the closest ammonia-sensitive site, which is the West Wales Marine Special Area of Conservation. In other words, the sea a couple of hundred metres away. It also says the scale model has been run in conservative mode, assessing the impact within 360 degrees, and doesn't take account of the southwesterly prevailing winds. Now, these inevitably will blow the ammonia straight into Abercastle Bay, which is very close. And so the effect will be particularly strong on the adjacent marine conservation area. The scale assessment also notes that a total of 2,733 kilograms of ammonia will be produced per year. That's nearly 3 tons worth, and we know that a good deal of that is going to end up in Abercastle Bay, where the prevailing winds will take it. So as to the size of the herd, which provides those ammonia calculations, you have elsewhere decided in similar ammonia sensitive sites to place a specific limit on the size of the herd, and that's going to be one of my recommendations. A limit on the size of the herd might also be relevant because of its impact on the visual landscape and upon the impact of walkers on the use of the paths across the farm. I can see the path which connects the coast path with Abercastle Road, and I can tell you that since the changeover, hundreds of cows in that field have reduced the daily number of walkers, which were many previously, to 0 this year, perhaps dissuaded by hundreds of cows in the field and the fact that there is an electric fence all the way around the field. As to the Slurry Lagoon, it is extremely large. It's 3 times the size of an Olympic swimming pool, 5.5 metres deep, and government UK advice says that to limit emissions from slurry lagoons, they should be covered. I see nothing in the plans that suggests that the slurry lagoon will be covered, and that's another of my recommendations to you. Turning to the milking parlour in the buildings, the application letter states, when viewing the site from the public viewpoint, from a close and medium range, it is evident the development will not be visible or prominent, and that additional screening will be provided by a new hedge and embankment. This is clearly incorrect and misleading. While it's true that the building won't be visible, excuse me, from the coast path, it is very visible and very prominent from the south and east, especially from the eastern side of the Abercastle Valley, where it can clearly be seen from over a mile away, sitting prominently to the side of the existing farm buildings and not within the existing footprint of the farm complex. The new hedge and embankment won't mitigate its visibility from these angles because they're on the other side. And in any event, no hedge could possibly hide a building that's 6.3 metres high. Indeed, one has to ask whether it really needs to be 6.3 metres high, and also why it couldn't have been built in one of the existing but apparently redundant buildings on the farm site. In terms of visibility, there's also a problem with the 18 translucent roof panels shown on the elevation plans. When lights are on inside the building, it will be very visible from the Garnflower Darkside Discovery site, only 5 miles away with no higher land in between. So my suggestions very quickly in the last few seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
Firstly, a specified limit on the herd size. Secondly, slurry lagoon should be covered. Thirdly, the committee should make a site visit to assess the visual impact. And fourthly, if the building is permitted, it should not be constructed using 18 translucent roof.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. And can I? Oh, I'm not going to compete with that. We lose the clock. Thank you very much indeed for adhering so assiduously to time. So I'm most grateful for that. I don't know if I'm going to ask members if they've got any questions for Mr. Niedritsky in a moment, but I'm going to ask if there's any response from officers to some of the technical issues that the objector has raised. Sarah, head of planning.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'd like to refer to Thomas, if that's all right, in terms of what constitutes development, because I think that would be helpful for members.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thomas, our solicitor?
Yes, of course. So section 55 of the Town County Planning Act defines the term development, and subsection 2 of that contains a number of exceptions for things which are not to be considered to be development. And that subsection E of that, so that's subsection 2E, specifically relates to the use of any land for the purposes of agriculture or forestry, and the use for any of those purposes of any building occupied together with that land. And what this essentially means is that because any agricultural use of land is not treated as development within the planning legal framework, essentially moving from one type of agriculture to another and does not constitute a change of use in planning law terms, or a material change of use in planning law terms. Hopefully that slightly technical point, but hopefully that helps to explain the position on that.
Yes, indeed.
Please do let me know if you want me to clarify that.
Okay. Are there any other officer responses to the objectives, what he's mentioned? Sarah?
Yeah, I would just draw members' attention to the consultation responses from Natural Resources Wales and also from the National Park ecologist, who have not objected to the proposed development. The National Park ecologist also undertook the first stage of a habitats regulation assessment, which is the test of likely significant effect, and concluded that there was no likely significant effect on the basis of the scale information provided. So on that basis, we have not suggested a limit to herd numbers. That approach has been taken in previous applications where the test of likely significant effect has identified that there is a potential impact, and at an appropriate assessment stage we have then looked at conditions to limit numbers. That's not the case in this instance, and that's why that approach hasn't been suggested here.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, Sarah. Right, I'm going to open it for questions to the objector from members of the committee, and the first person who's indicated is Councillor Di Clements. Di.
Thanks, Chair. I also wouldn't mind just perhaps clarifying a couple of things that the objector mentioned. I think he mentioned about UK government insist on covered slurry pits, but I don't believe it's a Welsh government insistence at the moment. It may be at some time in the future, but we don't have to do that at the moment. So that's just to put that there. And also, it's not always about the number of cows, it's what they emit. In various forms. So you could have 100 cows, but actually they could emit more ammonia and other things, you know what I'm talking about, from if they're fed in a greater, you know, an amount. So if they produce a lot of milk, they're fed a lot, so they're going to produce more. So I think that's that sort of blows that argument out of the water a bit as well with the objector. So I'm just a bit concerned that perhaps some of the information that's been put there is perhaps not as correct as it should be. So I just wanted to put that there for now. I don't have any questions to the objector, other than I wouldn't mind knowing where, I won't even try to pronounce the objector's surnames, apologies, but does he live locally, and I'd just like to know that. Thank you.
I think you're on mute.
Yes, so I live locally. I can see the buildings from my back garden.
Thank you. Are there any further questions to the objector, please? I don't see any hands raised. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Niewicki. We're most grateful to you for attending and for speaking. We do have the applicant as well, so I'd like to welcome Mr. Christopher James. I can see he's present. So, Mr. James, you have 5 minutes to address the DM committee. Likewise, you have 5 minutes, and at about 30 seconds to go, the clock will appear, and then you'll have to wrap up your submission. So, welcome, Mr. James, and please, the floor is yours in addressing the committee.
Thank you, Chair. I relish the opportunity to back our application today. I have my son George next to me, who's very much involved in the business, and you know, he's been involved with the purchase of Longhouse Farm. I feel the report that's been tabled for the committee today, Mr. Howes has been very accurate with that. It's a lot of work, and a lot of the objectors' points are actually brought up in that report. Certainly, the scale of the report has been approved by National Resources Wales, as far as we're concerned. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but the one point I would make is that even though we haven't been a Longhouse that long, we have farmed within the National Park at Stackpole for many, many years. We have run this particular system that we specialise in for 20 years at Stackpole. In so doing, we've rented land off the National Trust, and we have helped on the National Trust land to create a more biodiverse environment. And when we purchased the farm in Longhouse, we were again offered the National Trust land on the coast. And we've been working with the National Trust to increase the biodiversity. And anyone who's been there will see there's been tree planting. We've increased the widths of the hedgerows. So again, the objector mentioned that he's worried about biodiversity, but there's nothing biodiverse about an intensive arable farm. And to the south of the Abercastle Road, it was farmed very well, but it was continuous cereals. So we will be increasing the width of the hedgerows there again, hopefully planting more hedging plants as well. But we expect to see the biodiversity increase with our farming system. We know there's low carbon sequestration in the soil at the moment, and our system is particularly good at increasing the carbon levels in the soil. The other concern that hasn't been brought up, but in terms of traffic, our system relies on cows walking out to the fields daily. So we've got no interest in walking cattle on the road. So that's why we've put in the other application for an underpass, which we've also done at Stackpole to a huge success, because our cows are never on the road. And also with our system, we need to have our land in one block. So we don't intend having slurry tankers running around from our slurry lagoon. So we want to see as little machinery on our farm as we possibly can. The objector mentioned the height of the buildings. I'd like to point out that the building is lower than the two buildings it's being built against. And when we went to Longhouse, one of the existing buildings was quite an ugly grain store with a fibre cement tower, which reached another 15 foot up into the sky above the shed level. We've removed that. We've taken it down. We've actually reduced the height impact at Longhouse, and people locally have appreciated that. We've also removed the patchwork of repairs on the sides of the shed, replaced it with Yorkshire boarding, which is what the National Park like to see on coastal farms. And finally, in terms of the size of the farm, I'm afraid economics dictates that to a point. So a 360 cow herd can be operated with a 3-man team, and that's important. But in terms of the size of the herd, it's been designed to match the NVZ regulations within Wales. So we fall within those regulations, and we cannot expand the herd above that size, and we won't expand it above that size, because geographically there is no more land available to acquire either side of Longhouse because of the geography. So without going into detail about the report, I've got more to add, but I'd love to invite questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. James. We're grateful to you for your submission. Just losing the clock, and then I'll ask members if they have any questions for you. Members, are there any questions to the applicant? I don't see any. Oh, Councillor Clements.
Thanks, Chair. I actually was going to mention about the lighting, but Rosie beat me to it earlier. But I noticed, obviously, it's an extensive dairy farm you're proposing, and I know it's worked well in other places that you farm. But you're actually not going to have the lights on very often, are you? Anyway, because you're going to be outside most of the time. So I presume it's probably only sort of milking times, and possibly through a very small part of the winter if the weather is inclement and you have to bring them in, if you're planning on wintering them out on forage crops. So would that be correct? Is he frozen?
Mr. James, can you hear us? I fear he might be.
Yeah. I think so. What I suppose I'm saying is, I'm presuming from what I understand, there'll be limited impact on lighting anyway. Perhaps Jack can help me on that one. You're nodding, Jack.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. As usually when people think of intensive dairy now, it's all the cattle kept inside, and there's a lot of light during the night so the lights are on constantly. So like you mentioned, I think the lights are probably only going to be on during the milking parlour, because there aren't any sheds proposed for housing as such. I presume they are going to use some of them periodically embedded on straw, and that's why as well the slurry, the nutrient store isn't going to be used as much as an intensive indoor herd.
Okay, Di. Thank you. Have we got the applicant back into the meeting? I think he's arriving now. Mr. James, you with us? Have we got the applicant back?
He's showing on screen, Chair, but I don't believe he can hear us.
Okay. Dr. Harvard, Madeline.
Yes, it was to follow up on the light question, Cadelydd, and yeah, it would be helpful to be able to ask Mr. James, but what impact removing those translucent panels would make. We've heard that lights will only be on during activity that is obvious with the dairy herd, i.e. milking, and but you know, whether that suggestion of not having those translucent panels in, which we have conditioned at other sites, I know, might be a positive way forward to remove even the light pollution that's been highlighted. However, I also realise that that might increase costs by having to have lights on at all occasions that are there. But just a general point, perhaps. And Kate looks as if she might be able to come back.
Indeed. Kate, do you want to come in?
I've got an idea. If Mr. James isn't able to answer the questions, it looks like he's having connection issues. I think there's a balance here, because in terms of animal welfare, you want them to be able to have natural light. And it's obviously more sustainable to have natural light than to be using electric all the time. But we could ask, if members were minded, to have an additional planning condition asking for the internal lighting scheme and hours of operation of that, to check that the lights aren't going to be left on all the time. But I noticed the applicant has now got his hand up, so he may be able to be able to jump in.
Okay, I don't know how much of that you heard, Mr. James. Are you with us? Very difficult when the technology doesn't work. Mr. James?
It may be possible, perhaps, if Mr. James is able to, that he may be able to type into the chat. If it appears that we've got, if he can hear us, it appears it may be a sound issue.
The other option would be for him to leave and to join again.
Yeah,
indeed. Are you able to ring him and discuss this, or no?
No, we don't have a telephone number.
Okay,
Dr. I don't anyway.
Thank you, Diolch, Cadelydd. Kate, I think that request might, for an addition to the condition, might be helpful. You as officers are obviously aware of the sustainability issues as well as animal welfare issues, as you've highlighted, and I'd be happy if you were to receive an outline of usage, then that would be appropriate, I think. So if that's acceptable to Jack as the officer, and yourself and Sarah, I'd be pleased if that would be added. Thank you.
I've just seen something in the chat. Was that from you, Rosie?
I just wondered if Caroline kicked him out, whether that might help him to, as it were, come back in again afresh. It's so frustrating for applicants.
It is. Does anyone know any good jokes?
Hi, I'm sorry, but am I back now?
Oh, we can hear you now, Mr. James. I don't know if you'd like to ask the who raised the issue of the lighting. Was that was Di? I don't know. Did you hear any of the last contributions, Mr. James?
I haven't, but I should have mentioned lighting in my presentation. Lighting is obviously important to us when we're working there, but now we've heard these concerns, which I have to admit I'd overlooked. We'll certainly work with the planning authority in trying to make sure we reduce the light emissions to a minimum. So I'm open to suggestions, and we will work around that.
Kate, can you mention to Mr. James the amended condition in terms of internal lighting that we discussed?
I'm just trying to draft it now. There's a possible solution, Mr. James, where we could add an additional condition to allow for this to be essentially negotiated after a decision is made if the application is approved. So we put something like, prior to operational use of the development, a scheme for hours of internal lighting shall be submitted to and approved by the local planning authority, and such arrangement as is agreed shall be retained thereafter. So it could be that covers the hours of internal lighting, or it could be that sees a reduction in the translucent. I can mention the translucent panels in the condition as well, so that it could be either the removal of the panels to prevent that impact on dark skies, or a condition to ensure that there isn't much nighttime light beyond those that you'd normally expect to see sort of early hours in the winter. If members are happy, we can draft that up and add that to the conditions.
I'm having a lot of nods, so I think they agree with that condition. Are there any further questions to the applicant before we move into the discussion part of this agenda item? Dr. Plummer.
Sorry, Chair. I was just going to say, I think that Kate's suggestion that it should be, as it were, post hoc, a discussion on that basis with the applicant to come up with, delegate to officers, coming up with an appropriate wording, I'd be very comfortable with, and I'd like to propose we do that, please.
Delegation to officers of that particular
condition wording.
Okay.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Di. Thank you. Councillor Claire George.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. James, I was just going to ask you, you mentioned about biodiversity improvements and carbon sequestration. I just wanted to understand what the baseline is and how where you think you'll be able to get to in that improvement journey.
The baseline is that we will, well, we have soil sampled the farm now, so we've got to know where we are at the moment. And our system involves the use of mixed species and long grazing rotations. So by the very nature of it, we tend to capture more carbon than a traditional cutting system, perhaps, or especially arable. So it's one of annual soil testing and checking our progress from the soil sampling.
Thank you. Are you happy, Claire? Do you want to come back?
Thank you. Yeah, I think the biodiversity improvements are to be welcomed.
Yeah,
well,
and I think
Sorry.
I think to be fair, the new sustainable farming scheme the Welsh Government is introducing will be covering this as well. So we'll be very much part of that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions to the applicant? It appears not. Thank you, Mr. James. We're grateful for your public submission to members. So we'll now move on into the discussion and the debate, where we'll make a determination. Dr. Plummer.
Thank you, Chair. I was encouraged to. I've been encouraged to hear the approach of Mr. James in his farming enterprise and the attempts they're making. It's good to see that the co-APR standards for construction of the silage lagoon are being adhered to, and I think helpful Di, thank you for clarifying Wales doesn't yet go for full coverage, but the co-APR is moving in a very, very sensible direction, it seems to me. And I noticed that the SUDS and SAB are outstanding, but they're simply a matter for note because they will be conditions anyway. So on that basis, I'm minded to agree with Officer's recommendation to approve, and I'm happy to propose that, Chair.
Thank you, Rosie. So you're moving the recommendations. Members can see the recommendations up here on page 47 to 48, but obviously they've been as amended.
Yeah, sorry, subject to that delegated wording of condition.
Yeah, thank you. So that's been moved by Rosie. Councillor Mike James, are you seconding?
Diolch yn fawr Cadeirydd. Odw, dwi'n hapus i eilio gyda'r popeth sydd wedi cael ei dweud I roed gyda'r cynllun. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. So it's been moved by Dr. Rosie Plummer, seconded by Councillor Mike James. But obviously there's any further contributions are welcomed. The recommendations as amended in the previous discussions. So anyone else wish to speak on this agenda item? Doesn't seem so. So if that's the case, Dr. Madeline Harvard.
Sorry, Chair. I'm slow to catch up there. I think it's been really helpful debate. Diolch yn fawr I bawb. Thank you very much to everybody. Especially the clarification from Thomas and Sarah concerning what counts as development for consideration under planning legislation and what doesn't, and clearly changing in agricultural practice sometimes would, but you know, a clearance of a field perhaps you might have to do an environmental impact assessment on, but a change in approach of a farm, in this case because of change of hands, but can be for many reasons, doesn't have to. So that's been really helpful and very interesting, I think. On this specific case, it's obviously a very sensitive site, and I'm pleased that we've been able to perhaps introduce some control of an area that clearly was of issue to people not happy with the change, but also that the applicant themselves hadn't really considered, and I think, Rosie, your continuing work on lighting is really important to us, and is something that the park is very, very aware of and celebrates our dark skies. So I think that's really helpful that we've been able to do that. So it is quite a big application, hence coming to us, but I think we seem to be getting to a very good place where we've got benefits to the environment, changes that will improve the scheme as well. So I just to support the proposal and application, I shall be supporting it, but also to thank members and officers and indeed both speakers for their input, which has been really helpful.
Yes, indeed. Totally concur with all those comments, Dr. Harvard, but also I think there's been some great benefit from all the good questions that were asked arising from those two submissions. So that was great. Okay, I'm going to put this to a vote, members. It's been moved by Dr. Plummer, seconded by Councillor Mike James. Approval as amended, the conditions as amended. Councillor James. Oh, you were keen as mustard there. Okay, those in favour, will you please raise your hand? Thank you. How many is that in favour, please?
I believe that was 9, Chair.
9 in favour. Are there any against? How many against? So I can announce it.
2 there I can see against, Chair.
2 against, 9 in favour, 2 against, and are there any abstentions? No abstentions? Thank you. Well, that is carried, so that's approved. That application is approved. Thank you very much indeed. So thank you, members. We're moving on then to the third
Hello.
item. Hello?
Sorry, Simon. My hand function wouldn't arise, so I was abstaining because I arrived to the meeting late. Apologies to all for arriving late. Thank you.
Not at all, and thank you so much. And that actually demonstrates a very valid point that obviously members shouldn't vote if they haven't heard the whole debate. So thank you, Angie, for that. That's a good and timely reminder. So we're moving on to the third agenda item for us to consider today. This is application NP 250245, proposed machinery workshop, Trewen Farm, a place not unknown to us, at Pwyllgor Fachog at North Pembrokeshire, SA 41 3XE. And I believe that the presenting officer of this application again is Jack.
Diolch, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This application has been presented to the Development Management Committee in accordance with the scheme of delegation, as the Director with a responsibility for planning considers that it raises matters of public and or member interest. This full planning application seeks permission for the erection of a new agricultural building at Trewen Farm to be used as a machinery workshop supporting the ongoing operations of the holding. The proposed building would be located within the existing farm complex and has the following approximate dimensions. It would be 18.3 metres in length, 9.15 metres wide in width, and a ridge height of around 1.5 metres. Trewen Farm is an agricultural holding situated in an open countryside approximately 1.2 kilometres southwest of Pwyllgor Fachog, within the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. The farmstead comprises of a mixture of traditional stone outbuildings and modern agricultural sheds, forming a compact cluster set within gentle undulating pastureland. The surrounding landscape is characterised by open fields, mature hedgerows and scattered areas of woodland, with the access to the farm via a single track lane connecting to the A478. The proposed building is directly linked to the operational needs of the farm, providing secure storage for machinery and ongoing site workshop, improving efficiency and reducing the need to move machinery off-site. No increase in livestock is proposed, and the building will not be used for housing animals, processing, or any external commercial activity. During the application, officers expressed concerns regarding the scale and the siting of the building and its potential visual impact on the landscape. Following these discussions, the applicant repositioned the building to sit lower in the landscape, below the height of the existing farm buildings and the farmhouse, with revised plans received on the 29th of July 2025. The amended siting is considered acceptable, remaining within the development envelope of the farmyard, consolidating built development rather than extending into open countryside, and representing the character and the openness of the surrounding area. This site lies approximately 350 to 400 metres from the North Pembrokeshire Woodlands Special Area of Conservation, which includes a series of ecological linked ancient woodland sites such as Coedcwm, Gwaun and Tŷ as nearby woodland fragments associated with the Never catchment. Although the building is located outside the SAC boundary, it its proximity necessitates consideration under the habitats regulations. A primary screening and test of likely significant effects indicates that the development would not adversely affect the SAC's qualifying features. Given the building scale and location of the existing farmyard and absence of direct hydrological connectivity, conditions are recommended to strictly control any future lighting and encourage the biodiversity enhancements on site. This is a picture of the approved agricultural workshop and equipment store back in 2024. And the applicant has just indicated, obviously, this isn't sufficient and secure enough for their operational needs. The proposed building is considered necessary for the efficient operation of Trewyn Farm and is approximately sited and designed in relation to the landscape and existing development. It supports rural economy and respects the visual and ecological sensitivity of the national park and complies with the relevant local and national policies. No objections have been raised and all technical consultees are satisfied with the proposal subject to conditions. In conclusion, officers consider the proposal acceptable in terms of design, siting, operational justification, landscape and ecological impact, and policy compliance, and recommend that the planning permission is granted. As such, the report before members contains the relevant information in order to determine this application. Therefore, the recommendation to members on page 21 for approval is based on the associated planning conditions set out over pages 32 to 33. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed,
Diolch.
Jack. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I'm going to ask for questions to you as the presenting officer. And the first hand raised was our friend Gwyn, who was very early on. So Gwyn, questions to the presenting officer, please. Is Gwyn on mute?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting stuck with my hand going up there. Whenever I press, it's got a mind of its own. So I'm sorry, that's from the previous discussion.
Okay, thank you, diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much indeed. So questions to the to Jack. So I think the next one is Dr. Harvard, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Jack, could you just confirm the height of the building for us? I think on the dimensions, I didn't quite pick it up.
5.1 meters.
5.1.
But that might be better clarified by the agent if necessary.
Thank you.
If I'm incorrect.
That's fine. I'd written down 1.5.
Yeah. I probably said it wrong. Apologies.
It's not high enough to get a
for a quad bike maybe, but
no, exactly. So thank you for that. And just to confirm that this will be a building on a site across the lane where currently there is storage of vehicles. We've seen that on site visits, as the chair said. It's a site we know of old, but this will be a new and large 18 by 9 by 5 building on that site. Yeah.
Sorry.
But presumably the purpose, therefore, is to actually tidy, in inverted commas. It will be a storage facility for a lot of the machinery that is already stored out there, or there will be still quite a large concrete pad on that site.
I believe the purpose is more for a workshop, so be able to accommodate roughly 2 tractors at a time. So it's for continuous maintenance and jobs to be carried out on site.
Thank you, Jack. That's really helpful. So there probably will be still machinery parked outside in that area, but
Yeah, we did. As you see it towards the road at the top of the site, there was discussions whether the shed be better up there. Obviously, but we thought the size and the bulk could be more prominent there, whereas it's lower down on that parcel of land across the lane from the main farm. But it should be in line with the majority of the buildings that are on site.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, it's another building, isn't
yes,
it?
Yes, of course. Yes,
already
yeah.
a very big and impactful site.
Yeah.
And my other question again arises from the fact that we've been out to the site previously. That area was one that was being used for calf pens, certainly when we did a site visit for a previous application. And I was just going to ask whether you or any of the other officers have had any discussions with housing for calves, and whether that would be expected to be still around in that area or whatever. I know that's outside this application, so if you're telling me it's not material, then fine,
this was discussed, and I think we were just seeking clarity on the condition proposed on the previous application, and I believe it did mention that the pad was not to be used for any kind of livestock.
Yes.
Thank you. Kate, do you want to come in? You've indicated you want to speak. What is it about this?
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was just to mention that there was a condition on the previous approval for this enlarged car parking area, which restricted the use of the concrete pad to non-livestock. So there may be an issue that we need to look at going forward on this site in terms of enforcement, but we'll discuss that with the applicant and the agent under separate cover. We did have a brief discussion about it on the site when Jack and I were at site a couple of weeks ago.
Thank you, Kate. Sorry. So we are just talking machinery, and this will enable maintenance of machinery. Yes.
Thank you. Incidentally, members, once we've had the questions to the officer, we do have the agent, Wyn Harris. He's available and present. He's not going to address the committee, but he is available to answer any of your questions. So we'll come to that once we've had questions to Jack. The next question is from Councillor Clements.
Thanks, Chair. We were concerned about creep, weren't we, before in the previous application, and I remember, I think, saying about stanchions and things there, but hey-ho. I noticed, which you've pointed out, Jack, about a previous retrospective application for the agricultural workshop, which you've shown.
Yeah.
So are they going to have 2 workshops? Is that the plan or not? Because I wondered if perhaps that building that is currently the workshop will now be used for animals, and of course that may increase. I don't know, and I just wonder whether you'd had that discussion.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry.
No, we did. That did come up in conversation when we were on site, and that's what we did visit. With the open nature and the size of it, it's basically just been used for storage of oils and things for running, basically for maintenance on tractors. But obviously with the size and the security issue, I think that's why they've proposed a new shed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Di. Rosie, please.
Sorry, I saw Sarah's hand up. I wonder whether she needed to come in on something. Sorry, Chair.
Sarah?
Only to note that the previously approved shed for as a sort of a workshop and storage area has a condition on it preventing its use for use for animals. So that would need to be lifted if it was to be used for an alternative use.
Thank you, Sarah. Rosie?
Thanks. I'm just going to wind that dark skies handle again and say could we use the same wording as the amendment suggested for the previous application and add dark skies as an informative?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. It seems to be approval from the officers for that, so that can be amended. The conditions which are on pages 61 and 62. Okay, any further questions to Jack? No? Okay. Well, we do have the agent present, so I don't know if there's any questions anyone would like to put to Mr. Wyn Harris before we then go into the discussion and determination part of the item. Any questions to the agent? No, I don't see any hands raised. So, okay, we'll move on to the determination and the debate. Who'd like to begin? Dr. Plummer.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the officers in particular for addressing the visibility concerns in the redesign, and indeed for the applicant doing so, and for the conditioning the use and the various constraints they've put in. And in the circumstances, I'm satisfied with what I've heard, and I would be minded to follow the officer's recommendation. And Chair, if I'm willing to propose, if that's what you would wish. I'm sorry, I realise that's early stage of the debate, but I'm just letting you know. Thank you.
No, it's always very helpful to have have something on the table, so to speak. So you're moving the recommendation of approval on pages 61 to 62 as amended with your previous contribution.
Yes, thanks.
And Councillor Mike James.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Hoffwn i eilio beth Rosie wedi bod yn gweud. Dwi'n hapus gyda'r ffordd mlaen. Diolch i Jack a pawb am y cyflwyniad heddi. Dwi'n gwybod wedodd Jack rhywbeth a beth i security. Mae dipyn o becsom ymlaen yn y gogledd a mas yn y wlad. Na bod dipyn o twgyd ymlaen gyda 4x4s a popeth yn debyg yna. So dwi'n hapus na bod hwnna'n mynd i helpu y confidence yr applicant. Dwi'n gobeithio na bydd hwn yn helpu bod pethau'n mynd i bod yn fwy saff i'r... Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi. Thank you fawr.
Thank you, Councillor James. You make a very good point as to the reality, sadly, and extent of rural crime. Okay, are there any other speakers before I consider putting this to a vote? Well, I don't see anyone else wanting to speak, so it's been moved by Dr. Plummer and seconded by Councillor Mike James of the recommendation of the officer's recommendation of approval as amended on pages 61 and 62 of the report. So can I ask you, please, I know some of you are having problems with the hand function. You can either call or you can email Caroline with your vote. So those in favour of approval, will you please indicate? Right, so could we have a confirmation from the officers as to how many members have voted for approval?
I counted 9 there, Chair.
9, thank you. Okay, are there any against? Are there any abstentions? No. Okay, well that application is approved. So that's the last of the applications. Can we pause a moment and see if we can get Councillor Alderman back? I think he was going to wait until we're now on looking at the update on appeals. I'm anxious that Steve has waited, so we need to let him back in. And can I thank all the officers for their presentation, especially to Jack for his 2 very good presentations. So congratulations, Jack, on your... Is this the first meeting you've presented to DM?
For a while. For a while, I think, yes.
Well,
So
well done.
diolch yn
Well
fawr.
done. Well done to you and Kate for the excellent presentations. Okay, Councillor Alderman, is he back? Ah, let's see his... Steve, are you with us? Yes, we can see him.
I am, Chair. Thank you.
Excellent. Again, there's very, very good news in terms of appeals, in terms of upholding the decision of this committee and officers' determinations as well. So who'd like to give the update on appeals?
I think it's me again.
Okay, Kate. Yes.
Sorry, is my screen sharing? I'm trying to
Yes,
do it.
it is.
I'm trying to make
no,
it seamless, but it's not seamless, and I've forgotten to adjust my cursor, so I am sorry.
No, we can
Jack,
see the screen.
Jack beats me on the big cursor.
I was going to say Jack can tell you how.
I did know, but I forget every single committee. So yeah, really good news on the appeals. I just wanted to do a quick 5 minutes on the appeals because one of them is quite significant and one is quite run of the mill, but they're both good decisions. If I go through Place Double first, Place Double was a really significant and challenging appeal. It went to a hearing rather than written representations, and I need to really sincerely thank Gail and Sarah for their help with the written statements and on the day with the hearing itself, because it was one of the toughest ones I've done for a really long time. And it's an unusual planning application. It's one that we had pre-application advice, which we had given advice, but it was not necessarily taken into account with the final scheme. You can see it's just to the south of Monaclog Thee in the Preseli's. The yellow line there is the outline of the national park. So you can see how remote an area it's located in. One of the main concerns that we had as National Park Authority was that the building itself was so far removed from the actual college building. So the Place Double is a quite unusual educational facility which caters to young adults with additional learning needs and is in itself, I think it's called a biodynamic farm. So it teaches farming and it fulfills a very specialist educational niche with students coming from quite some distance away. So it's quite a rare thing. But the building that was being proposed at one stage had been described as a visitor centre during pre-application discussions for the Preseli's. And you'll see that it's a building of some significant scale. So the architect had designed it to not mimic, not replicate, those are not the right words, but to echo, I suppose, the Scheduled Ancient Monument, which is very nearby, Gorsfauer Stone Circle, which is just to the northwest of the site. But if I go back to the site location plan, you can see that the visitor centre would be very clearly visible from the road, but you can't actually see the college site because it's so far removed from it. So if I go back to that one, that's the more helpful one. So the college site is located down essentially in a quite a steep wooded valley, whereas the visitor centre was up on a plateau where there are currently polytunnels for agricultural use. So we had a number of concerns on this. One of which was the impact on the registered historic landscape, one of which was the amount that any student or visitor coming here would be reliant on private car. And hopefully the applicants will come back to us with an amended scheme at some point, which positions any additional buildings they need much closer to the complex of existing buildings, which is what we always try to suggest to minimise impacts of development on the landscape. So that was a really positive appeal decision there. I think the inspector agreed with us on all points. The second one is a very small, characterful, very typical small Pembrokeshire cottage. Sorry. Have I put a plan on? Nope, I haven't put a plan of where it is. There we are. It's just within our very new conservation area. So it's the last house within the designated conservation area. We'd actually had 3 planning applications in total on this site for extensions, and it was the 3rd application that was refused that was appealed. That's the cottages existing, that's all of the elevations as proposed. So you can see that to the side a smaller extension was proposed, but to the as viewed from the south elevation and the west elevation, it was a really significant scheme. So this was the first refusal, the first application that we had back in 2024. And then we had a 3rd application in 25, which is not, as you'll see, not vastly dissimilar from the first. I think there was a very slight reduction in the ridge height. So that was the one that went to appeal, and the inspector agreed that it was harmful to the symmetry, to the scale, to the character, and by virtue of that, harmful to the character of the conservation area and the special qualities of the national park. So it was a good decision, and a difficult one to make, because we're always aware that there are people behind these applications, and they're people who want a larger house. But I think it shows that there are some sites where the level of development goes beyond what the site can support. And hopefully there is an alternative scheme here that can be supported, but we would always encourage planning agents and applicants to come to us to ask for pre-application discussions before submitting applications. So 2 good decisions. So thanks, members. That wraps up my appeal summary.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions to Kate? Again, excellent decisions, and it shows the sort of the sort of sound way in which decisions are made, not just by DM, but obviously by delegated officers' decisions as well. So we are a very highly regarded planning authority, and thanks to the officers. It's a whole team approach, and we're grateful to everybody who works in the planning department. Rosie.
Simon, this is going off the appeals. Can I just raise something for kind of comment if we finished with the appeals?
Okay, how relevant is it?
Well, it's a question of just asking officers in relation to visual impact.
Yes,
and we heard with one of our previous applications, we've been clearly told by the solicitor that change of enterprise, agricultural use, isn't a planning matter. Completely understand and appreciate that. But one thing that is very impactful, and actually Madeline alluded to it earlier, was the potential dramatic change in the colour of a landscape. So, for example, a change from sheep grazing to intensive dairying clearly, is not a planning matter per se, but it may have a very significant visual impact on landscape in terms of the change of vegetation. And I just wondered if there's anything that helps us to take account of that. We all hope that sustainable farming scheme is going to move us sort of beyond that a little bit and reduce the added nitrogen, lower stocking rates, etc. But I just think, given our sensitive landscape, and if you think from a painter and artistic eye, it's a really significant break. You can see the breaks of the change, and I just wonder whether Sarah may want to make a comment or an observation on that.
Yeah, very good point.
So as a planning authority, we don't have powers. As Thomas outlined, a different type of agricultural use is not development. You don't, for example, need planning permission to plant trees. So sometimes we get questions about, do I need planning permission to plant trees? No, you don't. If you're changing from being a sheep farmer to a dairy farmer, the use of the land, that's not a form of development that we would have control of. There are other controls in place. So there are the EIA regulations for agriculture. So sometimes if you are ploughing up a field, for example, that has been pasture for a very long time and there is sensitive habitat, you may need to look at those regulations. That's a Welsh Government operation. And then I think in terms of the national park as a whole, we obviously are operating to encourage environmentally sensitive farming, regenerative farming, and our role there really is through some of the grants that we're increasingly operating. So things like Ffermio Bro, which has just been launched, where there is specific financial support for things such as increasing hedges within your holding if you are within the national park landscape, or perhaps looking at the types of crops that you're growing and whether you've got a herbal ley, for example, to support soil regeneration. So we do have a role as a national park, but it's not the planning function. It would be some of our conservation colleagues who would lead where it relates to the type of agriculture on the land. Obviously, any form of physical development where there are sheds, that does trigger the planning function, and then we will look very, very carefully at visual impacts and at screening and at the controls that we have on that side then.
Thanks, Sarah. It's just that sort of visual, interpretation of visual impact, and as we know, Stalinist blocks of new woodland, for example, or indeed, we all know, some of us who are old enough know that, changes in enterprise to bright yellow rape is very different from other things. But thank you, Simon, for just allowing us just to air that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions in respect of appeals before I bring the meeting to a conclusion? No? Councillor James.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Just gofyn yn gyflym, ni clywed Sara yn siarad yna nawr ambyti Ffermio Bro a'r launch gaethon ni yn y siow sir. A was rhyw cynllun i dod â rhywbeth i ni mewn workshop neu unrhyw beth fyna? Diolch yn fawr iawn.
I'm hoping Tegrin's going to come in and answer that.
Hello, diolch. Dwi yma, fi'n siŵr chi'n gweld fi a gweud y gwir. Fi'n siŵr beth sydd wedi digwydd fyna, ond yn sicr fe newn ni ddarparu adroddiad i chi falle'n rhan o'r Operation Review Committee ac yn y blaen fyna, ond yn hapus i rannu hwnna gyda'r aelodau ni gyfanrwydd.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much indeed. We look forward to that very much. Okay, there's no further comments at 6 minutes past 12. I'm going to, sorry, Councillor Alderman.
On that point of Operational Review Committee, Simon, it's on the 24th, I believe. And we have a site visit within the PCC that day. Can Caroline confirm whether that meeting is in the morning or the afternoon, please?
Sorry, Chair. Our Operational Review Committee is in the morning. I believe therefore it does clash with your committee. I maybe
we have a site visits, do we not?
Yes, absolutely. I maybe I will speak to Mrs. Saunders in the County Council.
Well, I've just sent an email to Lydia Cheshire, who is Democratic Services organising that committee, and I said I'd get back to her to say I was hoping it was in the afternoon, because it's myself, Simon and Tim that would be rather split as to where we should
indeed.
that
So
morning.
long as the officers are in contact, we might be able to accommodate both.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, members. Yep. This brings the September meeting of the Development Management Committee to a conclusion. Thank you all for your attendance and for your contributions and for the hard work of the officers. So thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Diolch, Chair.
Bye-bye.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thanks all.
Are you still there, Caroline?
A minute. Yes, I am.